watching Your Vote on YourTV. My name is Barry Wright. Joining me now is Keith Benn. Keith is the Sarnia-Lambton candidate for the new Blue Party. Thanks for taking time to join us.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Tell us a little bit about who Keith Benn is.
Yeah, it's all right. It happens all the time. Well, I'm originally from Wallaceburg, Ontario, where my family's been for many, many years, and my grandfather founded an outfit called Benn Iron Foundry that some people have heard of. Yeah. And then my father and uncle grew that into a business that employed about 300 people at a time in the 60s, 70s, early 80s. And we moved out to Port Lambton when I was about 13 years old, where I live now. I haven't been there ever since. I've been away for many years, but I came back.
Not a bad place to come back to, right? So.
Yeah, well, you know, I finished my high school in Wallaceburg, as we all did from Port Lambton in those days. And then I worked in several factories on shop floors. I did some construction jobs in Ontario and Alberta. And then in my early 20s, I decided that, yes, I was going to go after a university education. Initially, the idea being to get a bachelor's degree and get into the minerals exploration industry, and one thing led to another, and I ended up with my doctorate in geology. And then I was married and had two wonderful young children, and I decided to take a really nice steady job with tenure at the University of Ottawa. And I was there for 17 years, teaching and doing research. And in 2008, I decided, well, I'm going to get back to doing what I set out to do originally, which is to work in the minerals industry. And I walked away from tenure, which not a lot of people do. I had the impression from some of my colleagues that they thought it was sort of like leaving a priesthood or something, and they were asking me if there was something wrong and if I needed to talk. I said, there's nothing wrong. I'm going to do what I want to do. I like a challenge. And the minerals industry offers lots of challenges, and I've been doing that ever since. And in 2008, that's also when I moved back to Port Lambton and bought the family house. And I've been there, living there, using that as my home base ever since. I work in the minerals industry, mainly in exploration, mainly geared towards gold. And I've worked in upper management and executive level roles in some of the largest corporations in the gold mining industry and in some of the smallest corporations in the gold mining industry. And now I currently work as an independent consultant.
All right. You talk about challenges. Obviously, this is your latest challenge to toss your hat into the ring.
Yes.
What was the catalyst for that?
Yes. The catalyst for that is watching what is going on in our country, but specifically in our province over these last few years. I've seen a fairly steady leftward drift in Canada and in Ontario over quite a few years, but you know, it was pretty gradual, and I thought, we've got enough good people in place, they'll be able to stop this and turn it around. It never seemed to turn around. And then the COVID event, as I call it, arrived, and I looked at the disastrous response of our various levels of government to that. And also, part of the disastrous response was the shredding of human rights and the rights of the individuals, and the massive overreach of government in several ways. And I decided that I couldn't stand on the sidelines any longer and just keep complaining about this. I had to get involved and try and make a difference. Right. And when I looked around for a vehicle, so to speak, a party I could join and run for office with that party, I discovered very quickly New Blue. I identified it as the best choice by far, and it still is by far. As far as I'm concerned, it's the only real choice besides the legacy parties. And so I signed up, and I was chosen as the candidate in Sarnia-Lambton, and I look forward to the honor of going to serve you all in Queen's Park.
Notwithstanding the COVID-19 situation, obviously, I mean, that's a cornerstone. What are some of the other things that people are talking to you about when you go canvassing at the door?
Well, in general, the erosion of individual freedoms is a big one. Another thing that people talk about a lot are the issues in our public education system. Notably, not only by any means, but notably including the introduction of such things as critical race theory and gender fluidity theory, if we can call it that, at a very early stage with very young children in school. And people are pretty upset about that and pretty worried about it, especially because it seems, and there's good reason to believe this, I could share an anecdote with you in a minute if we had time, to believe that there are certain elements in the public school system that are actually preventing parents from really being fully aware of what's going on there. And with some of the promises that have been made recently, notably by the NDP leader, regarding public funding of what I refer to as the surgical mutilation of children when they become convinced that they were born into the wrong body, I think that it's scaring a lot of people. So I hear a lot about that. I hear about healthcare in general, mental health, long-term care, understaffing, wait times that we've been enduring for a very long time, but they've gotten worse now recently with the firing, the unjustifiable and unjustified firing of so many healthcare workers who refused to take the experimental COVID jabs. So those are things that are at the top of the list, but also the other things that come from COVID as sort of spin-offs of it, if you would, the problems with travel. I was speaking with people yesterday evening who don't have COVID shots, and they can't get on a plane and travel anywhere. They can't get on a train and travel everywhere. It hurts their professional lives. It also hurts their private lives because, you know, they can't go on vacation any farther than they can drive. So there are all of these things. I think what COVID didn't bring most of these things about. It caused them to accelerate very rapidly. You know what they say about, you know, the old thing about going broke. You go broke very, very gradually right up until the day when it happens suddenly. Well, the same thing happens with the erosion of our freedoms and the advent of, quite frankly, tyranny. It happens very, very slowly over many years, and then all of a sudden it happens suddenly. And I think the COVID event was the early stage of the sudden part. I think we're still, fortunately, and this is one reason that I am so pleased to be involved in this election, right now in Ontario and Canada, but specifically in Ontario, because this is where we're having an election, we're at a stage where we can turn this thing around simply by going to the ballot box and saying yes to New Blue and to the promotion and preservation of human freedoms and in general, and saying no to what all of the left-leaning legacy parties are forcing upon us right now.
Right. One of the issues, I guess, that's top of mind for a lot of people as far as their pocketbooks are concerned is the price of gas right now. What can a provincial party, and I guess yours in particular, what can you do to help ease that strain?
Well, I don't think that there's, well, first, it's absolutely shameful and unconscionable that in a country like Canada, which has one of the greatest natural resources endowments of any country on the face of this planet, that we should have shortages of petroleum and gasoline and diesel fuel and natural gas, sending prices through the roof. There's no excuse for that other than either governmental incompetence, or I think worse, that government is doing it to us on purpose. And I think we all know they're doing it on purpose to push their so-called climate agenda. At least that's the cover story for it. And now, what can a provincial party do? I think what we can do is, once we get to Queen's Park, is we can reach out to other provinces, other provincial governments to begin with, to talk to them about then turning and addressing the federal government and saying we need to address these issues. We need to build pipelines. We need to facilitate, not rush through, but facilitate the projects for more exploration and development of natural resources of all types, including critical minerals that are going to be needed to put into to make batteries for electric vehicles that are coming. I think they should be coming slowly but surely over the next 2 to 3 decades. Some people are trying to push them on us overnight, basically, which I think is a huge, oh gosh, an awful error. But anyway, those minerals too that we have in Canada, we have to facilitate the exploration and the development of those. One example being the famous Ring of Fire region in Northern Ontario that you're probably aware of. You'll recall that Doug Ford made a campaign promise in 2018 that he was going to open that area up for development. We know there are mineral deposits there. It's been known for years and years and years. Lots of nickel, chrome, and other things. And he promised that he would open it up for development. That was a 2018 campaign promise. He said he would do it even if he had to get on the bulldozer and build the road to get there. Well, in 2022, what's he promising again? He's promising to open up the Ring of Fire for mining development. In other words, the same promise he made 4 years ago, and then he has the temerity to adopt the campaign slogan, "Get it done." And he's going to get done what he promised 4 years ago. That's a bit of a sore spot with me because I'm in the minerals industry, yep. But it should be a sore spot for all of us because the wealth that would be generated from that project for local Indigenous communities to begin with, and for Ontario writ large, and also for our society in terms of producing more metals that we need for batteries and for all sorts of other things. It's unconscionable that that hasn't gone forward. And that's just a symbol of the way our governments at several levels, especially provincial and federal, and it seems to be worse at the federal level, just seem to not be able, they don't know how to facilitate and create a development and to create a good environment for the development of not only natural resources but other industries as well. That's something we need to work on when we get to Queen's Park.
Keith, your party as well has talked about decreasing the harmonized, the HST, the harmonized sales tax,
yes.
By 3 points. Tell
yes.
us sort of how you arrived at that as far as getting more dollars in people's pockets.
Well, you mean how did we arrive at 3% particularly?
Exactly, yeah,
well, that seemed like a reasonable number. I mean, we don't want to cause an economic shock by lowering it too quickly. I don't think it's out of the question that we could lower it more in the future. But 3%, I mean, pretty sure that the provincial share of the HST is 5%. So if we lower it 3%, or no, sorry, it's 8%, I believe. Sorry, excuse me. If we lower it by 3%, it will be 5%, which is still going to generate a significant amount of income. But something I'll point out is that the HST being a regressive sort of tax, in other words, it affects lower income people of modest means more than wealthier people. They will be the first people who will benefit from this first and foremost, are the people of modest means.
Right.
And we know that there's a lot of issues right now with the massive inflation in everything, including gasoline, but also food and rent and everything else. Anything we can do to lessen the tax burden for people of modest means is going to be very helpful, I think, and welcome.
Speaking of people of modest means, we only have about 90 seconds or so to go, but ODSP, does the party have a stance on whether those monthly allowances should be increased and how much?
They should be increased. What we need to do with that, like we need to do with so many other topics that we could discuss, is to get when we get to Queen's Park, we need to get the stakeholders together, all of the interested parties. We need to sit down at the table. This is the sort of strategizing I learned working in the minerals industry and planning projects that cost tens of millions of dollars every year. The first thing you need to do is get all the stakeholders together and map and decide where do we want to go with this? What do people need? What do we need to provide them with? The people who are unable to provide for themselves, what do we need to help them with? Identify what it is, and then with the stakeholders at the table, we decide how do we get there and how much money. Some of it might just simply be, well, it's maybe not that simple, but might be just raising the payments. But there could be other issues we could look at as well. Housing, for instance, lessening the cost of living for people, maybe generating more jobs so that people can get out there and earn their living instead of having to live on, well, I mean, for disability, I understand it's a little bit more complicated, but in these days when so many people work in front of a computer from home and everything, maybe there are people with certain kinds of disabilities that we can help get into the workforce right. too. You know?
Keith, thanks so much for taking time to join us. I know we probably could go for another 45 minutes,
I'd love to.
If people are interested, go to the New Blue website, and
yes.
The platform is there. You can go through the entire list of various tenants of the platform.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for taking time.
newblueontario.com, everything is there. We also have a Facebook page for the Sarnia Lambton group, and we have a campaign office out in Petrolia, very easy to find. And please reach out to us, folks. I'd love to talk to you. The more I talk to people, the more I learn about local issues, and the more I develop my ideas so that when I get to Queen's Park, I'll serve you as the way that you deserve to be served.
All right, thank you so much for taking time to join us. June 2nd, remember that's the date, Thursday, June 2nd, the provincial election date. Get out and exercise your franchise, and if you'd like to do advance voting, that is on now until May 28th. So again, our thanks to Keith Benn, Sarnia Lambton candidate for the New Blue Party, and you're watching Your Vote on YourTV.